Coach, thank you very much for doing this, and finally, nice to meet you. You've been on the job for about a month now. My first question is: have things gone sort of according to plan as you saw it when you took the job?
Well, I mean, I think the first priority for me was to just make connections with the goaltenders, right? So on a personal level and on the ice, I think that's happened organically, and maybe a silver lining with this complicated COVID year and some injuries. I've gotten a chance to know these guys. So I think the connections are happening, and I'm happy about that.
With the way things have unfolded with injuries and things like that, do you see, you've sort of gotten a chance to see almost all the goaltenders. Do you see an abundance of riches in this organization at that position?
Well, I think we have reason to be excited and optimistic about the future. And I think we've got a lot of different skill sets of different goalies. And I think Justin Peters has done a great job in the development role, working with guys in Belleville. And I think we've seen that with DeCord and Gustafson, and with a small sample size with the draft pick that we signed, Stogard. So that's an important role, I think, for him and I to be in good communication and making sure that there's some consistency in the messages that the goalies are getting.
What do you see as the biggest challenge right now, Zach, moving forward with the number of goaltenders that you do have, starting today, going down through the last 3 games of the regular season and then into the summer?
Well, I think, these things have a way of playing themselves out. And I think a lot of guys have made a really good case for themselves, earning playing time. So I think it's a good problem to have. And like I said, I think these things tend to work themselves out. So we'll just have to see how everything pans out.
Chris Garriock, Post Media.
Hey, Zach, just a couple things for you. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to focus on with Matt Murray? Or was it about trying to get his confidence back?
Well, I don't know if there was anything particular. I met Matt for the first time, I think April 5th, right? So I think part of my mindset coming into this was to start fresh with him. So, it wasn't about reinventing or rediscovering, but just taking it on a day-by-day basis. And like I said earlier, just making a connection with him. And I think that, going into this, if him and I could get on the same page with a couple of things, that we wanted to work on, that would be a good starting point. And a small sample size, I think, he showed a willingness to make some adjustments and with some success.
And just how important was it for you to get in now and get to know the goalies going into the offseason? Because I would think one of the concerns you might have is you don't know how much access you're going to have to these goalies in the offseason yet, do you?
Yeah, it's a complicated, scenario for everybody in the organization and everybody in life. So we're all trying to figure this out as we go. But, I think if when we get into the summer and we have some communication, on some technical points and some off-ice training, having a buy-in from the goaltenders individually as to, what the short-term goals are for the summer and going to next season is important. So I do think that, the timing allowed for those relationships to develop and those connections to happen, which is a good thing going forward.
We've got time for a couple more questions here. We'll start with Kyle Bukoskis at Sportsnet.
Hey, Zach, a couple for you. I guess first off, I'm sure you were well aware of maybe some of the struggles that were going on with a few of the goaltenders early on in the year, but what ultimately, I guess, drew you to take this job initially with this organization?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I have history with DJ. Him and I worked together, winning a Mem Cup with the Oshawa Generals. So, I've seen what DJ can do, in inspiring a group. And I think that is evident with this young team, right? Like we're known as a young team, and that gets a lot of people excited. But I think that, we're seeing some of these young guys embracing the grind and embracing the work and taking on leadership roles at a young age. So I think, I've seen DJ be able to get a group on the same page and have buy-in across the board. And I think that it gives a lot of reason for optimism going forward. And I think working in the goalie development role for the last 3 seasons with the Coyotes, you know, I was kind of in lockstep with Corey Schwab, the goalie coach there, who helped me tremendously and showed me, you know, what it takes to be a good goalie coach. And that's something that I saw in him and saw with the goalies that he was working with. And, you know, frankly wanted for myself. So when the opportunity came up, I was happy to get on board.
And you mentioned connection a few times. I'm just curious, in your role and the nature of the position of goaltending, how do you go about establishing that?
Well, I think, you know, first of all, I think it's important to have a digestible message with attainable goals and manageable goals, right? And my playing days, the goalie coaches that I responded the best to were the ones that gave me, you know, a couple steps rather than 10 or 15 things to work on. So, and I think there has to be, you know, reciprocal communication, right? It's not just about making everybody play the same way or having a bunch of set rules. I think it's understanding each individual with their, you know, what makes them tick and their technical strengths and weaknesses. And then, you know, once the coach and the goalie get on the same page with a couple points, then that tends to just, you know, establish that connection and make working together easier.
Final one is Mark Broussard at Loudois.
A couple for you, Zach. Curious, you work with Brian DeCord in Arizona. How far back do you go back with Joey?
Well, I just met Joey for the same day that I met all the goalies. So we're about 6-7 weeks, I guess. But it was great working, you know, with Brian in Arizona with a short sample size, albeit a strange year with the COVID complications. But you know, he helped me grow as a coach in different ways, pushing me outside my comfort zone. And you know, he's a very resourceful and you know, a guy that's been ahead of the curve in a lot of regards. So I appreciate that, and getting to know Joey, you know, I'm really impressed with him as a person and as a young athlete, and I think the future is bright for him.
And the Coyotes had a big organizational goaltending system, I guess, in place. So do you see the need to have the same thing in Ottawa? And I mean, Pierre Drew is still here. Does he help with the transition?
Well, I think that's something that'll have to play out over time. You know, coming in with just over a month left in the season and in a condensed schedule and all of the injuries, you know, there hasn't been much time to kind of think broadly about the organization in that regard. Having said that, like I touched on earlier, I think, you know, establishing communication with Justin Peters at Belleville is an important first step, so that there's some consistency with you know, what we're trying to get across to these goaltenders. Although they all play differently, I think there's certain things that you know, we want to see trickle throughout the organization.